But the thing about tier one assets as well is if they really are tier one, they can be the gift that just kind of keeps on giving because like Nick was making a good point about recent copper discoveries and plays. Like he's big on mod resources because the land package is so massive. So when you've already got these initial resources and discoveries and everything's looking good, yet you still have this massive land package that's underexplored or has never been explored, and you keep drilling away. We don't really know in the present moment how big this thing could ultimately end up to being, right? I mean, if we go back to Ivanhoe example and we say Kamoa was a world-class tier one asset and it was enough to kind of justify the market capitalization, where it was at the beginning of 2016 and during the initial uplift, but then Kakula comes along and it just kind of it's crazy to say that you can discover something so significantly better in this case in terms of grade. It kind of, like Platte Reef is actually, for the longest time, that was a world-class tier one asset in, the platinum group metal space. But then now you have this monster of Kamoa and Kakula. And now as an investor getting in today, you probably, you look at Platte Reef like, hey, maybe it's nice, but it's just kind of a freebie, right? And this is not something... This is not something that would have ever registered in the minds of Ivanhoe investors, let's say 5 years ago. And the best example of that is like, the Japanese government getting in like a 10% stake, and they were willing to pay 300 million USD, right? Yeah. So that just kind of that kind of confirms already 5 years ago, this is a legitimate tier one asset in Platte Reef, because like who's going to pay $300 million just for a 10% stake of that, right? And now back to Fabi's point. I think this also really is worth noting. The best time to buy any asset, whether tier one or not, but especially tier one, is at a bottom of a commodity cycle where the market is so irrational. A company like Ivanhoe can trade for essentially cash in the bank, right? And when I got in, that was kind of the appeal. I was kind of doing the same analysis as Fabio, where I was saying, hey, this thing is trading for almost cash. They've got 3 really, really high quality assets. And then you look at all the transactions that were going on, right? You had Platte Reef, where the Japanese government had a 10% stake at 300 million, and that was already alone exceeded the market capitalization of the entire company. And then Zijin Mining signed, for a 50% stake at over 400 million USD. They had a, 10% equity interest placement that they did for like $1.36, right? Sometime in like 2015. And then, at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, Ivanhoe was trading for like 60 cents a share, and you're like, Zijin was willing to, pony up for $1.36, and then on top of that, they were willing to write a check for $400+ million. Why is the market cap of the stock trading like below like all of that, right? And the share price. So that makes it a no-brainer. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, everything always looks so obvious, and a lot of us are just kind of like dwelling on it. I mean, even I took a pretty good sized position for myself, but when I look back, the only thing I could really say to myself, like objectively speaking, is that was pretty obvious. Like even back then I could see, I was like, wow, this is like, it might be one of those rare opportunities of a lifetime, right? And, it's always back to that whole greed versus fear thing. It's easy to chase something on the way up because you always feel smart when the share price keeps going up 10% every other day or something. But when something just keeps declining, it's like really seriously, fundamentals just go out the window. No matter how much we want to believe, we just, the fear is so overwhelming. We kind of look at a commodity cycle and we can't even look at it rationally. We'll say something as precious as a precious metal, or invaluable as copper, for the world to move along, we'll look at it temporarily and we'll say, wow, this thing really can self-destruct to zero. It has no value, right? Because these companies are trading for no value, and we're so paralyzed by the fear that it's very hard to bet with conviction. But, that's why these conversations are useful, because now with the benefit of hindsight and, when we finally see the turn in commodities, we can look at projects like, Ivanhoe and NextGen and kind of look at it more rationally and say, wow, that was really a great opportunity to load up. So in a recovering market, I would say probably the best time to load up is probably on the dips, because no matter how good a stock is, it will just correct 20 or 30%. And Ivanhoe recently did that. It ran up to $5, right? I sold that actually at $4. Yeah, it was really fast. When Ivanhoe reached $4, I sold out completely, just thinking it had run far too fast. And I was kind of okay with that because I had already made my gains. I got in, like 65-cent range or something like that. So, I was okay with taking the profits off the table. But, even when I sold, I had the the thinking in mind where if this thing runs away, then I'm okay with it. But if it corrects, below my my sell price, then I have no problem, buying back my shares because I've always liked the story. I just think it's overcooked in the short term kind of thing. I mean, yeah, it is kind of risky. I was trying to trade it, but luckily, it did dip below, like back to the 370 range, and at those levels, I was like, forget it. I don't even care if it crashes below $3 because you already know at that point it's no secret to anybody. It's tier one asset, right? Yeah. So it had corrected like 20-30%. So I said, okay, I'm buying back some of my stock right here. So I think that's just probably the best way to play it. Once the market and everybody knows it's tier one, you just have to wait for the pullbacks because with anything, I don't know. I don't really like chasing on the way up because you never know when the market will reverse course because these stocks are just so volatile.